Yeah, let's play some damn chess. First, let's look with the spit smell blood. Man, she smells like spit the way she sleeps.
Kept you safe and warm, held your heavy bones delicately in the sun.
Let's do that again. That smelled like spit.
Kiss your eyes with sky, wrapped you in the night. I was fresher in your lungs.
One more time.
Kept you safe and kiss your eyes with sky, wrapped you in the night. I was fresher in your lungs.
Man, she smells like spit still.
Kept you safe and warm, held your heavy bones delicate in the sun. There's a card escape that you choose to play. There's a give and take. You're a fever now, burning out when it's hard to. Don't you let go of me, I'll never let go. I'll never get cold. I'll never let go. I'm never gonna get going. I'll never get tired. I'm setting up fire. I'll never let go. Go on. Fed you from the trees, blessed you in my seas. Always water on your tongue. Belly of the beast, brought you
wow, she has some spit arms there.
in the sun. And it's a callous game that you choose to play.
Get that damn knot out of here.
You're in fever now, and it's burning when it's hard to breathe. Don't you let go of me, I'll never let go. I'll never get cold. I'll never let
Get that whore out of here.
never gonna get going. I'll never get tired. I'm setting up fire. I'll never let go.
Oh, you trying to ear my rook. Man, I think I fucked up.
Holds your knife black gold against my furtive throat. But I don't need clean air to breathe. I'm not the one that chokes. It's your well, you poison now. A fate I cannot taste. And while you sleep, my endless reach. A guard with many.
Man, I fucked up.
When the curtains finally close your last undying gaze, I'll take the throne. I'll put it cold. The last
That fucking pisses me off.
Don't you worry about me.
Man, that fucking pisses me off.
Don't you worry about me. Don't you worry about me. I'll never let go. I'll never get cold. I'll never let go. I'm never gonna get going. I'll never get tired. I'm setting up fire.
Whore.
I'll never let go. Go on.
Fuck this shit. Let's start a new game. Rematch me, bitch. That fucking pisses me off. No. Suck my cock. You're gonna lose that damn bishop. Ain't a damn thing you can do to keep from losing that damn bishop. Suck my cock. You just lost that damn bishop. Dumbass. No. Get that damn knot out of there. Hell no. Y'all are not gonna pull that shit on me, stupid bitch. No. Yeah, I better not bring my whore out. I have a feeling that's a stupid move to do, but I'm gonna do it anyways. I'm hungry. Shit.
Okay, well, you mentioned talking to Jesus, and that would probably be the first question for you that I had. Meeting Jesus, what's he like? Can you put that into words? Do you want to bring us a little bit back to that part of your experience?
Yeah, I want to highlight a few things. First and most important is that his love for us is beyond any experience of love that we've ever had in our life. So I'm even reluctant to use the word love, but I'm not going to make up a word, you know. His love is like our falling in love, that, you know, kind of like over the top crazy love, that where we fall in love magnified by many, many times. Wow. The love that he expresses towards us. Secondly, and this is something that I think is really important that isn't talked about, he likes us. He made us.
Yeah.
He likes us. He made our nose, our eyes, our mind, our bodies. He put us in the life situation that we're in. He thinks we are the most adorable things in the world. I'm a grandparent by many times, and the only thing I can compare it to is
get that whore out of here.
We just love our grandchildren unconditionally, and they can do no wrong. They broke the precious china. Who cares? We'll get another one. You know, not important. Right. You know, and all we want. What do we want for our grandchildren? We just want them to live well, to be good people. You know, and hopefully fulfill whatever potential they have in life. That's what we want for our grandkids. You know, and that's what Jesus wants for us. That's why he doesn't want us to do stupid, bad things.
Get that whore out of here.
I
take that whore out for a poison dinner.
And one more thing I want to point out is that Jesus has the best sense of humor in the whole world. And the reason why I know this is for a fact is because he thinks I'm funny.
There we go.
And my wife doesn't think I'm very funny. Matter of fact, you know, a lot of times she thinks
I'm come after you.
Terrible. And, you know, because I like to say silly things. You know, I think it's amusing. And Jesus thinks I'm amusing.
Yeah. Well,
so therefore, he must have the greatest sense of humor in the world.
Yeah. Well, you can always say, "Oh, that one killed with Jesus." I don't know about you guys, but well, yeah, that's awesome, and that's very very different than the picture that some people have tried to paint of, an authoritative figure who is angry with you when you
Get
don't
that
live up to
whore out of
standards.
here.
Yeah, and that's a terrible corruption.
Mhm.
Because, one of the reasons why I think I can support my understanding of Jesus is that if you just step back and look at the gospel records, he's mobbed all
Get that
the
whore
time.
out of here.
He's constantly trying to get away from these mobs. Now, he was mobbed because he could heal people, and there was no medicine as we know it in his day. So that was one reason why he was mobbed. Another reason why he was mobbed was that he had wisdom and charisma that just astounded people. But there's another reason why he was mobbed that people neglect to think about, because he was so beguiling, so charming, so winsome. He was not a person to be terrified of or to be afraid of. He actually told jokes. I had in my New Testament class in seminary, they were trying to explain some of his things are actually, in the cultural context, quite funny.
Yeah.
He used hyperbole a lot, which is like, I've told you this a million times. What's the matter with you? You're not listening.
Right.
It's like, that's the way he talked. Idiomatic, Aramaic, first century.
Yeah, it doesn't always translate unless you know what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Man, this is really starting to fucking piss me off. Uzi spit. Get that fucking whore out of here.
Discussion tonight. We're going to leave you maybe rethinking your five senses and how real they are. Do we see an independent reality, or is what we're seeing something our brains are constructing because we need to predict, or we need to feel safe,
she's
or
got
we
some
need to
spit
feel
on
less fearful, or because we've been programmed to see
Get that
or
fucking
hear
whore out of here.
or smell or taste or touch what we're seeing just to survive as a species. So let's get started first with our first panelist. He is a world-renowned neuroscientist. He specializes in both biology and psychology. He's the founder of the very aptly named Lab of Misfits, a perception-based creative
suck my
agency.
cock.
Everyone, please give a warm welcome to Bo Lotto.
Suck my cock. Fucking bitch.
Well, it's great, really, really lovely to be here. It's such a wonderful group of people that are going to be here, so I feel really honored to be sitting here with them.
Suck my cock.
Actually, I have a personal aim, which is I want you to know less at the end than you think you know now. All right? Because nothing interesting begins with not knowing. And it would be brilliant if you didn't know at the most fundamental level. So to start with, what is our greatest fear? What is our greatest fear? Think about it. And it's the dark, right? We hate not knowing. We hate uncertainty, right? We evolved to take what is unknown and make it knowable, right? It's one of the biggest sources of emotional stress is the not known, which then leads on to actually what is one of our greatest desires, right? What is one of our greatest desires? And instead of telling you, I want you to feel our greatest desire. So we're all going to stand up, right? And we're going to conduct a piece of music together. It's Strauss. You all know this piece of music, right? And we're going to conduct it together, and I want you to feel what our greatest need is. Are you ready? Yes? Yeah. All right. Ready? 1, 2, 3. If you have the music. Louder. Come on, conduct. Come on. You know where it's going. You can feel it where it's going.
ass for these damn poems.
Can you feel it? Right? What we need is
Fucking poems.
closure. Okay? You can sit down. This is because we evolved to predict, right? All the information, I'm going to show you that all the information that falls onto your eye, into your ears, onto your skin is infinitely meaningless. It's useful, but it's not meaningful. It doesn't come with instructions, doesn't tell you what to do. So we evolved to predict. And so in the next slide, you can see that here your brain is predicting the colors of this cube. And you see a dark brown tile at the top and a light orange tile at the side, yes? Yeah, that is your perceptual reality.
Kiss
You
that
bet your
fucking
life
phone,
that they
bro.
are different when they are exactly the same, right? That's your physical reality. And now if we change the slide again, that's your
Man, this guy's
reality. Nothing's
stupid.
changing on the screen. What's changing is the meaning of the information, not the information, right? You're seeing the historical significance of data, not the data. What this also means is that what history gives you, right, are your assumptions and biases, right? That's what history gives you. Because your brain is, the functional structure of your brain is a physical manifestation of your past interactions with the world. And not just your history, but the history of your family, of your culture, of your evolutionary history. Most of your life happened without you even there. Okay?
That was
And
stupid.
If everything you're doing is grounded in your biases that come from your history, then it means you can actually change what you see by changing your biases. So if we start this in motion, you'll see that your brain assumes that you look down onto surfaces. That's because we evolved in a ground plane. So you're seeing it spin from left to right.
And it's Uzi.
But now change your assumptions.
Get ready to
you're
kiss your ass to
at that
goodbye.
central plane and stand it down on it, and it will flip.
Bitch.
Right? How many can get it to flip?
Just for the sheer
Right?
fuck of it.
Sometimes it helps if you blink, blur your eyes, look around it, and suddenly it will go in opposite direction. How many can get a flip now?
Alright,
Right.
fuck sure.
All you're doing is you're changing your assumptions.
Oh!
Okay? So, quick question actually. Which direction is it actually rotating? How many say left to right? How many say right to left? Some of you say, I don't care. Right? What if I tell you there's no motion on the screen at all? Nothing's moving. Would you believe me? No? Nothing's moving. You're looking at an animation. An animation is a series of still images that are slightly different from each other. Right? Your brain is taking that small change and seeing the meaning of the change, not the change. If you take those exact same images and
these
put them in a random
motherfuckers
order,
are
you see a
swap
flickering.
whores.
Right?
That
So you're
fucking
taking a
pisses me
series of
off.
still images, perceiving them to move, and then flipping it from one direction to the other depending on how you think about it. In this sound sequence, I'm going to tell you that nothing's going to change. But you decide what you want to hear.
Suck my
You decide
dick.
if you want to hear Brainstorm or Green Needle. Okay? It's up to
Suck
you.
my
And
dick.
flip it back and forth. Let's turn it up.
Suck my dick. Suck my dick.
How many hear Brainstorm? How many hear Green Needle? How many can flip it? You're deciding what to hear, right? These perceptions and these biases don't just stay inside your head, right? You project them.
Stupid!
So here we have two triangles in a circle, completely
I just
meaningless
eared
shapes
his work.
until we
What
put
a
them into motion.
dumbass.
All right? And you're going to project the meaning onto them.
Man, I'm fucking this guy up. Hey!
One of the triangles. Right? You're feeling bad for the other one. You're worried for the circle. Right? This is a horror film. You can hear the soundtrack. And we're going to stop it there. And you're all wondering what happens to the circle. And the answer is nothing. It's a circle. Right? And what we do for objects, we also do for other people. Because where we can measure their what and their where, we can never measure their why. Right? So you project a meaning onto them based on your biases, your assumptions. And this will come in, that we'll talk a lot about tonight. So what then is the fundamental challenge of the brain? It's this. And again, instead of telling you what I want to show you, I want you to hold up your finger to me, ideally this one. Okay? and line it up to me and put it towards you or away from you until me and your finger are the same size. Right? Do you have that? Okay, we're not the same size. Okay? But your brain has no physical access to the world other than through the data that it's getting onto its receptors. And at that point, your eyes and your brain will tell you that me and your finger are the same size. Right? Because light, sound, etc. conflate multiple aspects of the world, in this case size and distance.
Suck my dick.
So the thing that is loud and far away can generate the exact same stimulus as something that's quiet and up close. And this is the fundamental challenge of every brain, which is to solve the problem of uncertainty. Okay? So with that said, I think we're finished with the introduction. Right? And again, I hope you will know less at the end of all of our conversations than you know now, but understand more. So thank you very much. Yeah.
Dick.
Thank you, Bo. I'm worried about the circle. I know it's just a circle, but it looked like it was in danger.
He gets away. He gets away.
Thank God.
Or it gets away.
And one of the triangles was good and clearly trying to help rescue the circle. At any rate. All right, we've got a great, illustrious panel for all of us tonight, so let's get right to meeting the rest of our panelists. Our next participant studies the brain and the mind, professor of cognitive and computational neuroscience at the University of
Stupid!
He has published more than 100 papers exploring consciousness, perception, and the self. Please welcome Anil Seth. Do past risks and rewards determine how we act in the present? Our next participant studies how we compare experience to evidence. She holds a PhD from Columbia. She did her postdoc fellowship at Princeton University, and today she runs her own lab at NYU. Please welcome Christine Constantinople.
Oh, she's got some long arms.
All right, we're going to ask all of you, can you make the case against reality? Well, that's the title of the forthcoming book from our next participant, who argues that we have evolved thanks to our ability to hide the truth from our own perceptions. He's a professor of cognitive sciences at UC Irvine. Please welcome Donald Hoffman.
I'm freaking tired now. Man, her arms
And
smell like
finally,
spit.
feelings of hunger, feelings of fear, feelings of safety, even love, can all apparently, according to our next participant, be aroused by our sense of smell. But how? Our next participant is professor of biochemistry, molecular biophysics, and neuroscience at Columbia University. Please welcome Stavros Lombardos. All right. I know most of you got to see Bo's little experiments on stage, and his sort of point of view that people can be tricked into thinking that they're seeing something that they're not, actually. Tell me what your reactions are to that and how your own philosophies on this whole thing differ or align.
So, I think they're a beautiful set of demos, Bo, and but we tend to think of illusions as exploiting tricks in the visual system, right? So an illusion is somehow revealing a quirk in how we see that if we could somehow fix it, things would be better and we'd see the world more accurately as it is. And I think maybe you were making this point, but what all the sorts of things you were demonstrating to me show is not that these are quirks in the visual system. This is how all of our perception is all the time. And it's this kind of flip where it's intuitive to think that perception is some kind of readout of an external reality, that with the eyes are windows out onto the world, and we read it out and sometimes we make mistakes. But really, perception is not coming from the outside in, it's coming from the inside out, always and all the time. It's this kind of neuronal fantasy that is tied in some way to whatever is out there, and it's the process of understanding how that relationship works. That's perception, and perception is not about representing the world as it is.
So you believe that there is an independent reality, but it is influenced by what you yourself are processing with your own senses and your own experience?
Yeah, I think there probably is something. If I jump in front of a bus, it's not going to go well, regardless of whether I'm
Right.
looking at it
It's
or
there,
not, or what it
and
looks
it's coming.
like. It's there, and but the way we experience things, from colours to shapes to maybe even the structure of space and time, the way in which our perceptions are formed, those, however real they seem, aren't a kind of just an opening out of the brain to the world.
I'm having to shit again.
We impose this structure on, sensory data doesn't have colour. It's electromagnetic radiation is colour. All our sensory inputs are colourless, shapeless, smellless, odourless. We construct not only the specific contents of what we perceive, but the modalities themselves, the structure, the environment, the whole shape and organisation of our perception comes more from within than without.
Donald, you're nodding.
Yes, I think that evolution shaped us not to see reality as it is. We tend to think that our perceptions, our visual system is like a camera. It just takes a picture of the truth, and we're just seeing the truth as it is. The wonderful demonstrations are a clear example of a very general principle, as Anil was saying, that we're constructing what we see, but there's this other twist. We usually, among cognitive neuroscientists, it's pretty well received that we're constructing what we see, but the assumption is that evolution has shaped us so that our constructions match the truth. And I'm going to argue against that evolution shaped us with a user interface that hides the truth. Nothing that we see is the truth. The very language of space and time and objects is the wrong language to describe reality, and that's very useful to not see the truth. You can control reality if you don't know what reality is very, very usefully. And so it's that kind of, so that's a very strong position on this. We don't see reality as it is, and that's why we're here. That's what keeps us alive.
We don't see reality as it is, but then how do you account for the fact that so many of us see the same reality? Sometimes. Clearly there are many, many occasions when we differ in our own perceptions.
Great. One example that Bo Lotto gave us quite a few examples. So when we all saw those two squares as orange and brown, we were not seeing reality as it is, and we all agreed. The reason we agree is not because we all see the truth, is because we all have the same interface shaped by natural selection. We agree, we have consensus because we're members of the same species, and we all have the same user interface. It's like all Apple users have the same desktop, so the things are very, very similar, but if you have a PC, then it's a very different kind of desktop. So we agree not because we see the truth.
Well, you can kiss that damn biscuit goodbye.
And Christine, you've found in your research that basically as a species, as Donald just referred us to, we're all, and not just us, other species as well, sort of desperate to see patterns, desperate to be able to predict, because as Bo said in his opening, there's nothing we fear more than the unpredictable, than chaos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. So in the lab we're interested in kind of the neural basis of decision biases. So if you present people with the same option repeatedly, they won't always answer the same way. And there's multiple reasons for that. First of all, our brains and our sensory organs are imperfect, so there's some noise that's associated with the processing of those options. But there's also decision biases that, depending on what we previously have experienced or choices that we've previously made, they'll shape our future decisions. And we actually study these things in rats because we have a very sophisticated experimental tool set that allows us to interrogate the neural basis of these biases with cellular resolution. And just to give an example, we conducted a study where we presented rats with different gambles or safe amounts of reward. So these were thirsty rats, so they were working for water rewards. And what we found is that if the rats gambled and they won, they were more likely to gamble again. And humans do this. So this is in economics referred to as the hot hand fallacy. In finance or recreational gambling, if you gamble and win, then you think you have a hot hand and you'll gamble again. So then we were able to leverage the tools that we have in rodents. Specifically, we used viral and genetic techniques to express ion channels in a particular part of the brain called the orbitofrontal cortex, which is behind the eye. And when we shine a laser, we're able to turn off or on cells in that brain area with millisecond precision. And if we inactivated the orbitofrontal cortex, we found that we eliminated the hot hand bias in our rats. And so we were able to, again, kind of leverage the tools that we have in rats to identify a brain circuit that's causal to kind of this really bad bias, right? Where the rats think that they're more likely to win, but they're not.
All right, Stavros, I'd like you to weigh in on all of this.
I study olfaction,
Yeah,
which
fucking not.
form chemical structures
into illusions of smells. So by default, these scents create an illusion of reality because chemical structures do not have a smell. That's our brain transform this structure into something that we think has a smell. And that's very helpful because we can navigate into our environment, and animals use it to avoid predators, to find food, but it's not an accurate representation of these chemical structures.
So, but we all, for example, recognize the smell of smoke and assign that to danger, right?
So there are some evolutionary selected smells that have common meaning to a lot of us, and this is also very common in animals. Mice are very scared of fox urine without ever smelling it. But the majority of smells do not have the same meaning to all of us. Actually, we have a lot of genetic polymorphism that makes us understand the smell of things very differently with each other.
I'm sure many of you in the audience remember recently there was that whole issue on all the local newscasts where there was a dress. And there was a lot of difference of opinion as to whether or not people, when they look at the dress, thought it was blue or thought it was gold. All right, in the audience, can we pull up the lights? Who thinks you're seeing a blue dress?
There's a bias.
And who thinks you're seeing a gold dress?
Oh.
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
Now let's go to the second slide. All right, can you explain this, any of our panelists, on why we're seeing the same dress in, dramatically different colors?
Yeah, so I love this kind of phenomenon. When this came out, there was kind of a vigorous debate among vision neuroscientists about what the basis was. And I think the general consensus, although I wouldn't say it's resolved, is that this particular picture, which someone just took with their iPhone, is kind of weird because the illumination is ambiguous, right? So you could interpret the case that the dress is cast in shadow and that bright light in the background is casting a shadow on the dress. Other people can interpret it that that bright light in the background is illuminating the dress, right? And so there are kind of two possible sources of illumination. And there's a really nice study that was done that was published in the Journal of Vision in 2017, where I thought the experimenters really did a good job of demonstrating and fortifying this hypothesis. So they did the following experiment. They photoshopped the dress onto an image of a woman that was in unambiguous light settings. So in one case, she was in a situation where it was a photo that she was clearly illuminated, and then there was a different photo, and they showed a different group of subjects, the dress photoshopped on an image where she was clearly in shadow. And then they showed them the dress, and they asked them what it looked like. And basically all of the subjects that saw it in light thought it was blue and black, and the
with her Uzi spit.
Welcome back to another episode of the Two Christian Dudes podcast. We're so excited to introduce a new guest to you today. His name is Howard Storm. He's got a powerful testimony. He'll be sharing about his near-death experience, or as Randy might say, his afterlife experience. So give me just a moment, and I'll bring both of those fine gentlemen into the conversation. Randy, Howard, welcome to this episode. I'm excited to see where our conversation goes today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Howard, for joining us. This is going to be an exciting time together because I wanted to talk to you for a long time. We have a mutual friend, John Burke, who wrote Imagine Heaven. And then you actually have a distinguished career. You had been a professor, an art professor, and you have painted some stellar pieces of artwork. You have taught within the university. You have been a pastor for a church in Kentucky and recently retired from that. You've authored numerous books, and we'll get to talk about maybe one or two of those. And then you've been interviewed. I was mentioning to you, I saw you on, I think, Amazon it was. You've been on Oprah Winfrey, all over the place and being interviewed about your story. And one thing that we talked about as we were beginning the show is that neither of us really are believers in Jesus Christ. But when I had my afterlife experience, I was a believer. But not the case with you, Howard. You were not a believer in Christ. So tell us a little bit about, briefly how your experience, but also where you were before your encounter with the afterlife.
So, bitch.
I grew up in the, I was born in 46, so I grew up in the primarily 50s and 60s, a really interesting time of great cultural change. Went to Sunday school as a child and was very enthusiastic about it because of the dysfunctional family situation. As an early teenager,
get that fucking whore out of here.
Decided that church was a bunch of hypocrites, wasn't real what they were saying, and I became a materialist. My interest went towards, if it's not tangible, if it's not visible, it doesn't exist. There's no supernatural thing in the world, and so I excluded God. Started reading
my dick.
With Camus, then Jean-Paul Sartre, Martin Heidegger and stuff, and became a committed atheist. And went to college at the age of 17 and took a philosophy class, and that professor was an atheist, and became quite confirmed in those beliefs. Hardcore.
Are hardcore atheist, and you have this experience, and yours happened to be, I believe, in Paris, France.
That's right.
And you had a devastating encounter with that required a surgical intervention. So tell us a little bit about that and what led up to your near death, please.
At 11 o'clock in the morning on June 1st, 1985, my small stomach perforated, which means that the digestive juices, large part of that is hydrochloric acid, bacteria, and all that good stuff, burst through the wall of my small stomach into my abdominal cavity, and the pain was way over the top, more than anything I'd ever experienced in my life, dropped me to the floor kicking and screaming. I was taken to the big city hospital in Paris, examined by two doctors there, told me that if I didn't have surgery within the hour, I would die. And they sent me from emergency over to the surgical hospital. But unfortunately, there was no surgeon available because it was a Saturday. And they parked me in a room. I was given no medication. I was given nothing, including no pillow, no blanket, no top sheet, nothing. And laid on a bed and waiting for a doctor to appear at the hospital. This began at 11 o'clock in the morning. I was in the surgical hospital before noon, and at 8:30 that night, nurse came in and said she was sorry. They were unable to locate a doctor, and they would try and get one the next day. Every doctor I've spoken to, and I've talked to many of them, told me that my life expectancy was a few hours at best. I should not be alive, having spent all that time in that treatment, because the
I just eared your rookie dumbass
cavity is being destroyed. Not only are you becoming extremely septic, but also the digestive juices are beginning to digest your organs. So the pain, which was so severe that it knocked me to the ground, thrashing and screaming and cussing and in terror, had only gotten much worse during those hours. And when the nurse said there was going to be no doctor, I hadn't seen a doctor. I knew there was time for me to stop fighting, because I knew that when you die, you're dead. It's like turn a light switch and the light goes off. When you die, no more activity, you're gone, and there's no more to you. Said goodbye to my conscious.
You dumbass.
As scary as that is, you're at the cusp of death at that point. And so, having read your books and also having seen you talk about your experience, at what point did you then enter into your what we were calling your afterlife encounter? What happened, and how did you transition to that place?
There was no transition. I went unconscious, and the next thing I knew, I was standing up next to the bed, and I felt better than I'd ever felt in my entire life. And I was so happy, so ecstatically happy, because I went from the worst pain I'd ever experienced in my life for hours, and then all of a sudden felt great. I also noticed that my senses were heightened. I could see, hear, taste, feel, touch much better than I'd ever before in my life. And I thought, this is pretty amazing. I'm not just better, I'm better than better. And I tried to communicate with my wife and my roommate, who, from my point of view, were ignoring me. From their point of view, they didn't know I was standing next to the bed, yelling and screaming at them. And I was very angry that they would not respond to me, because I was not aware that they didn't perceive me. And a group of people began calling me by name outside the room, and I went over to the doorway and I told them that I was sick, I needed a doctor, I'm supposed to have surgery, and they said, we know all about you, we've been waiting for you a long time, it's time for you to go. So I assumed that they were hospital people to take me to the doctor, and I left the room and went out into the dark hallway and followed them on a very, very long journey into ever-increasing darkness. As we walked, they became more rude and crude and abusive, and I realized that I'd made a huge mistake going with these people. And I told them, when we were in abject darkness, I said, I'm not going with you any further, I'm going back, which was a bluff, because I didn't know which way was back. I just wanted to get away from them. And when I did that, they began to fight with me, first shoving and kicking, and then punching, and then biting, and then tearing and gouging, and then doing things that I don't talk about that were very invasive. And it hurt a lot. And eventually I was all ripped up and laying on the ground of that place, unable to move, and I was no longer of any amusement to them whatsoever. And I heard a voice say, pray to God. And I thought, I don't pray, I don't believe in God. And the voice said, pray to God. And I thought, I don't know how to pray. I couldn't pray if I wanted to. And the voice said, pray to God. And I tried to think back to my childhood, and I remembered a couple phrases that I had learned as a child from the Lord's Prayer in the 23rd Psalm. And when I said them, the people around me became very angry, and they were saying to me in extremely obscene language that there is no God, nobody can hear me, and that they were going to do much worse things to me if I didn't stop praying. But I also realized immediately that my prayers were so repugnant to them that they were backing away from me, backing away deeper into the darkness. So I kept making up stuff about God, very crude, stupid prayers, but all prayer is good ultimately. And they eventually left me alone. And in that time, I got to think about my life. And my conclusion was I had no idea why I had been born, why I had lived the life that I had, and what was the purpose and the meaning of life. It was just like a complete mystery to me.
Would you, Howard, the encounter with these beings who are doing terrible, horrendous things to you, do you now look back on that as an encounter with demons?
No, absolutely not. There were. I knew absolutely that they were my, not literally, spiritually, they were my soulmates, my friends. These were the people that I hung out with that affirmed my beliefs.
And the belief at that time was counter to Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior.
Yeah, we mocked Christianity a lot. That was one of our favorite targets of sarcasm and mockery.
Yes. So at what point then, having had this encounter and you prayed out to God, so you prayed out to God and then what happened?
So in this self-analysis that I did and came to the conclusion that I was where I belonged, that this was where I was going to be forever and ever, but it was a horrible thought that I was stuck in this place. And as I sank into that despair of complete hopelessness, my mind went back to my childhood in a Sunday school classroom singing "Jesus Loves Me," and I could see it and I could hear it in my imagination, and most importantly, I could feel it. That there was this, and I don't mean any disrespect for this, but there was this Superman guy, this cool guy who was my buddy named Jesus. When I was a little boy and I was afraid or had a nightmare at night or something like that, I would pray to him and he would make things right. He took care of me. And I needed somebody like that now. And so I called out to him. And I called out to the darkness, "Jesus, please save me." And to my complete surprise, he came surrounded in brilliant white light. His hands and arms reached down from this incredibly brilliant white light and touched me. And I was made whole and filled with a love which is indescribable, because there's nothing comparable to his love in this world. So even the word love is inadequate to describe how he loves us. And his hands went behind my back and he picked me up and held me tight against him. And he was holding me very close. I was weeping for joy in his chest. And then I realized that we were traveling directly upward, going faster and faster. And as I tried to get my composure and take a look at our destination, I realized that we were headed towards a world of beings of light. And it's huge. And I realized that we were going to where God was. And at that I had a thought. He's made a terrible mistake. I don't belong here. He should put me back where he found me.
Howard, in terms of when Jesus embraced you, picked you up, did the pain, the torment you were feeling, did that dissipate in an instant? What transition there?
Yeah, it was. The pain was filled with an ecstasy of love, of being loved. And I just want to add that not only did I feel loved, I felt known. You know, it's like you know, when you go home and there's your mother, your father, your sisters, your brothers, your family, and it's like you can kind of relax a little bit because like you can be who you are. You don't have to put on, you know, any act for anybody.
You're where you belong.
Yeah. Well, being with Jesus is where we all belong because he knows us.
And in terms of I want to go back a little bit earlier in your story. In terms of the people or beings, whatever you want to call them, in the hallway calling you out of your hospital room, as you followed along with those folks, did you see a light you were going towards? Was it a tunnel? Because you talked about you ended up in a place of kind of utter darkness. So what was that transition experience like?
Well, I pretty soon, walking with him, realized that there were no walls, no ceiling, just a surface that we were walking on, and it went from gray to darker and darker and darker. And you know, I'm thinking there's something very wrong with this picture because, like, I'm on the third floor of a hospital, and it's not that big. You can't walk for miles and miles. We were walking for miles, and you can't walk for miles and never encounter a stairwell or a wall or anything else. So it was. I was getting very, very concerned about this is irrational.
Now you're a thinking person, Howard. Always academically inclined. You've taught in the academic setting. So, what your mindset as you're going through this versus how you assimilate information, let's say in the world prior as an atheist, how is that changing, or how did it change through those circumstances?
God damn it.
I was being exposed to a reality that I had no knowledge of and no belief in existed.
Suck my dick.
This reality of the physical universe that we live in and we all have in common, and we call that reality. It's what we are, the experiences that we share in this world. But there is a greater reality, a much bigger and more important reality that our physical universe is just a little subset of. And I had left the physical universe and gone into this greater reality, and I was trying to figure it out, which was pretty hopeless because everything was a whole new ball game.
And then the ball game changed, didn't it? Because at some point, you had been in the presence of Jesus Christ, encountering God from this point of desperation. And then what happened as you came back? And I have to say this caveat, studying you a little bit, Howard, is that you have described yourself as not being a terribly kind person, I think, if that's fair, going into this. So obviously you've changed dramatically. So what happened following this very ethereal encounter?
Immediately, when after this experience, and Jesus sent me back into the body, into the bed, the nurse came back into the room at 9 o'clock that night and said, the doctor's coming, we're going to give you the surgery. So I was prepped for the surgery and had the surgery at 10 o'clock. And next morning when I woke from the surgery, I knew that the most important thing in my life had happened to me. I know this sounds strange, but I feel like it was more important than being born, because I felt like I finally, because of the things that Jesus showed me and told me and taught me patiently and kindly.
Yeah, go ahead and take that damn bishop.
And what my life was about.
After that damn whore.
The big problem was, where do I begin? Because eventually I'm going to get well, and I'm going to go home and go back to my job and my family, and what do I do? And it was reevaluating everything from top to bottom.
Well, I actually want to back us up just a moment, Howard. When you encountered Jesus, he took you through some sort of a life review, and you got some kind of a perspective on, as we make choices as we go through life, how that impacts Jesus and the angels, and I guess we could say the impact that our actions here on earth have in heaven. I feel like that's a real important part of your story. Share a little bit of that.
They showed me my life in chronological order. Not every moment of my life, but everything that they felt was worth learning from. And to summarize it, what they wanted to see me do was to be compassionate, to care about other people. And being a alpha male, my concern was my own welfare and not other people's welfare. But I was socialized enough growing up in Massachusetts that I had social skills, so I could act politely and pretend to be kind and interested in other people, but in fact I wasn't. I didn't care for other people very much, and I was only really particularly interested in if they could do something for my benefit, and completely uninterested in if they could not. So this hurt Jesus and hurt the angels, and they very much disapproved of the way I was leading my life. The other thing was that all of my accomplishments, like honors, awards, promotions, successes, achievements, they had complete lack of interest in, total lack of interest in it. I said, but like I strove all my life to accomplish that. And they'd say, that's not important, that's nothing. Let's see how you treated your sister, your wife, your kids, your students. And then I would watch a scene where I would treat them, because not only did we get to see these things, but I also got to see how I felt and how the people felt by the way I had acted towards them.
That in itself, I would imagine, had such a transformative effect on you, because you had, in retrospect, looked at, you were basically told that you needed to treat people more kindly, more generously. But how do you change the have to the want to? I mean, there's one thing we're all told, be nice to your brother or sister or your friend or whomever, but that's hard to do from a disciplinary action. How did that change your heart then, to the point where you were that person who wanted to be kind, wanted to be generous and loving?
Well, I'd like to say, so my experience was 35 years ago, 85 till today, and I'm still working on trying to be more kind, more compassionate, more caring. But when I asked Jesus what my job was, when I come back to this world, he said, love the person that you're with. So I try and focus on